Good day, folks. Welcome to Andrew's Life. I hope everyone's doing great today. This is one of those videos that for some of you might be controversial. It's a real estate video. Yes, it is. Now, before I begin, no, this is not any kind of financial advice. And no, I am not a real estate attorney. What I'm getting ready to say are just pieces of, this is just my take on real estate, and this is based on my personal experience in real estate, both as a investor as well as a person buying real estate for personal purposes. So just bear that in mind. And again, this is not financial advice. But I was just asking myself this rhetorical question the other day. And the question is real estate an investment? Now, there's a lot of people that would say, yes, it's an investment hands down. As long as you own real estate, you're good. You ain't got nothing to worry about. You're going to always get your money. And then there's other people that are like, hold up, wait a minute. No, real estate is not an investment because of property taxes, insurances, and if you get somebody that tears your property up, you lose a crap load of money there. Plus, if you have to do an eviction. And of course, some of those people would also argue that if the piece of real estate is your primary residence, it's not an investment, it's a liability, because you're not making money living in your house. You're paying money out to live in your house. Property taxes, repair, maintenance, and insurances, and all that good stuff. And I've seen a crap load of videos talking about this very topic. And I just feel compelled to give my 2 cents about this matter. And here it is. Now, when it comes to owning a piece of real estate for your, for as your primary residence, I would say, depending on how you go about buying your home, it could be an investment. It could also be a huge liability factor. Now, if you go about buying your home the way many people have been going about buying their homes recently, paying $100,000 and $200,000 above asking, paying double and triple and quadruple the price for the house above what the market value in the area may have been, buying houses without having home inspections done prior, and then finding out later that the house has got a gazillion different issues. Now, if you're one of these people that are purchasing a home like that, or you're one of the people that may have purchased their home like that, then chances are the home that you purchased is going to prove to be more of a liability than an investment. Because not only are you going to have to pay the mortgage, but on top of that, now you're going to have to go back and make a bunch of repairs that you most likely did not budget for. Because when you purchased a house, you probably assumed, okay, everything looks good. Maybe you may have purchased a home that may have been a flip. So per usual, the house, everything in the house looks good. Everything is shiny. The paint is fresh. It smells fresh. It's a very clean house. So you're thinking everything is good. But then when you move in and you start to utilize all of the appliances and the utilities, that's when you find out the house has got a gazillion different issues. Now, however, if you purchase your home, or you purchased your home in a manner that was responsible, like, for one, you took a close look at your budget. You didn't just go out and buy a house based on what the bank told you can borrow, but you instead took a close look at your budget and you purchased a home based on your budget, and of course you hired a home inspector of your choice, not the realtors, but you hired your own home inspector. You had a home inspection done, and and also you took out maybe a 15-year mortgage as opposed to a 30-year mortgage, or even if you did a 30-year mortgage, you budgeted your money to where you would pay off the house in 15 years or less, and you made sure that you did not buy yourself too much house, and I'm talking financially. There's a decent chance that that house one day will prove to be an investment. So how is your house, your primary residence, going to be an investment? Well, let me tell you. From the day you pay off your mortgage until the time you're ready to retire or whatever the case might be, the money that you were spending on paying that mortgage, when you pay off that mortgage, you take that money. And by the way, this is not financial advice, but the money that you were using to pay off the mortgage, you take that money and you can reinvest it either in some kind of mutual fund, you can invest it in the market, you can invest it towards maybe a business endeavor that you may have wanted to do but you couldn't do before because you didn't have the money to do it. And there's other ways that you can take that money and invest it once you pay off your mortgage. And that's how your primary residence could become an asset as opposed to it being a liability. Now, when it comes to buying a piece of real estate that you're going to turn into a rental, now a lot of people will say, yeah, that's going to be an asset, and ideally that's how it should go, but sometimes that's not how it goes. Again, when it comes to buying an investment property that you're going to rent out, first and foremost, my suggestion would be to purchase the house and pay cash. I mean, I know for me, there is no way in hell that I would ever buy a rental property with any kind of a loan on it. I'm just saying. So my suggestion to you guys is if you buy a rental property, purchase that property and pay cash. Pay cash. Because here's how a rental property could be an investment. Now, if you purchase your rental property and you pay cash, and you purchase a property that is not too big, because personally, when it comes to rentals, I try to go small. When it comes to the lot size, I try to go smaller, because my attitude is, in the event that I get a crappy tenant in the property that for whatever reason they decide to not maintain the property, it's going to be less property that they're going to have to tear up. It's going to be therefore less property that I would have to go back and repair. It's going to be less property that during the time that I have tenants in it, I would have to worry about maintaining. It's going to be less property that I would have to insure. It's going to be less property that I would have to repair and maintain. Yeah, I would say that I have to repair and maintain. And generally with a smaller property, your property taxes are going to be lower. So those are all the reasons why when I look for a rental property, I tend to look for properties that are smaller. I look for houses that have smaller square footage, like, ideally under 1,000 square feet. When it comes to the lot size, ideally I just look for a property that's got just a regular city lot. Ideally under 1/4 of an acre. So, and also, that's, and also I look at, and also when I look at rental properties, I try to look for a property that doesn't need a whole lot of repairs. Like for an example, if I walk into a property and it smells like mold, I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna walk right back out the other way. I'm not buying it. I've owned property, I've owned a house before that I purchased that had extensive mold a few years ago, and it ran me over $30,000 to remove all that mold. So, lesson learned. I refuse to buy a property with mold. So if I walk into a property and it looks like something that, and it looks like some haunted house or whatever, chances are I'm not going to buy the property. If the roof has a hole in it and I can tell that it's been leaking for an extended period of time, I'm not going to buy the property. So anytime I look at purchasing a rental property, it's gotta, it's gotta have good bones. The foundation's gotta be solid. Even though the roof can be older, but it can't be having any holes in it. There can't be shingles falling off of it. And when I take my little walk around the house, there can't be any signs of leaking. There can't be any signs of mold, like I said earlier. And in fact, there can't be a whole bunch of missing windows either. The plumbing's got to be intact. Even if it's old galvanized plumbing, it at least has to be intact. The electric has to be intact, and it has to be working properly. And it needs to have been installed to code. So there can't be any major items in the house missing. And when it comes to the exterior of the house, I mean, if it's a regular wood frame house, the siding cannot be missing. The siding needs to be all intact. Because even for a smaller house, it can run several thousands of dollars to put on some new siding. So all the siding needs to be there. Now, if the house comes with a garage, if it's a detached garage and the garage is in poor condition and I still choose to buy that property, I'll just have the garage demolished. Now, if the garage is attached to the property and the garage is in poor condition, chances are I'm gonna probably walk away. So that's another thing about buying a rental property is, in order to ensure myself that I purchase a rental property that will prove to be an asset and not a liability, is here's a big thing: the neighborhood. Like for me, I don't have the funds to purchase in a Class A or Class B area. I wish I did, but I don't. Like for me, I would have to purchase in a Class C neighborhood, preferably a C+ neighborhood. Now, anything lower than a C grade neighborhood, I stay away from. I stay away from. And I stay away from neighborhoods that are rated below C because, for one, when you purchase in a Class D or a Class F neighborhood, the probability of you having issues with your tenant not paying their rent and trashing your property goes up. It goes up substantially. Not to mention, in many of your lower grade neighborhoods like that, the condition of the property is not going to be as good, because the people that owned that property before did not take care of it. And also, in those kind of areas, you tend to run into a lot of properties that were owned by slumlords. So they were owned by people that shouldn't have been in the landlord business in the first place because they didn't have the funds to be in the landlord business. So those are some of the issues you run into when you purchase properties in what would be considered a Class D or a Class F neighborhood. Now, what's a Class D and what's a Class F neighborhood? Well, I'm going to tell you real briefly. It's very easy to figure out. If you're driving down the street and you see a bunch of properties abandoned, you see a bunch of yards not maintained, you see a bunch of cars that look better than the houses, you see a bunch of people walking with their pants hanging off their behind, you see a bunch of people that look like a bunch of degenerates, I'll just put it like that. Y'all know what I'm talking about? At least I hope you do. Then chances are that's going to be your Class D or Class F neighborhood. And obviously, if the area is known for high crime and the area's got a negative reputation within the city or town for it being high crime, there you go. That would be your Class D or your Class F neighborhood. And I don't buy properties in those areas because it's just going to be too much BS. Now, for a short period of time, several years ago, I did purchase a property in one of those kind of areas, and it was nothing but headache and turmoil. So I don't do it no more. I refuse to. I don't care how cheap the house is. Maybe if the house was $10,000 and all I needed to do was put another $5,000 to $10,000 into it, okay, I might do it again. But other than that, no, I'd rather not. And another thing is, before I choose to rent out the house, kind of like what I'm doing right now to my house up in Indiana, I'm making sure that everything is up to snuff. I'm getting the walls repainted. I'm putting in some new counters and new cabinets in the kitchen. I've already put in new plumbing about a couple of months or so ago. I've already did the plumbing. And when it warms up a little bit, I'm going to go up there and get a new roof put on, and I'm probably going to replace the windows up there as well. And I'm also putting in new flooring, because my attitude is I want to have the house looking nice. That way I can be a little bit more choosier on whom I choose to move into that house. And whoever I have move into the house, I'm at least hoping that the look at the house, it looks nice, it's fresh, it's clean, and they'll appreciate the property, and they'll be a long-term tenant for me. They'll pay their rent when they're supposed to pay their rent. They'll keep the house clean, and they'll just be my long-term tenant until they buy something themselves or whatever the case might be. So I do believe in keeping the house clean. I mean, I do believe in whatever work the house needs, get that work done, bring the house up to par, and just do constant repair and maintenance to it as needed. And of course, I'm going to be doing inspections too, probably about a month once I get a tenant in there. But those are some of the things I do to help ensure myself that the house, that any rental property I purchase is an actual investment and not a liability. Now, here are some ways that a rental property could become a liability as opposed to it being an investment. Number one, if you purchase a rental property that's too big. Like if you purchase a property that, let's say, it sits on an acre and the square footage of the property is, let's say, 2,500 square feet. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen necessarily, but I would say if you purchase a property that big, there's going to be a greater chance that you're going to get a tenant in there that will prove to be a hoarder. They're going to fill your house up with all kind of junk and garbage. They might even have the yard looking like a landfill or a junkyard. They're going to probably go out and buy all kind of big pets and animals and stuff, even though you told them that they weren't to have no animals. So if you get a bad tenant in a larger property, it's going to be that much more cleaning up that you're going to have to do. It's going to be that much more repair that you're going to have to do. During the time you have that tenant into your property, if it's a larger property, it's going to be that much more maintenance you're going to have to do. Your property taxes are generally going to be higher. Your homeowner's insurance is going to be higher because you got a bigger structure. So those are things you got to bear in mind when you buy a bigger piece of property on a larger lot. Which is why, me personally, I wouldn't do that for a rental. Another way that your rental property could potentially become a liability is neighborhood. Now again, this ain't, this doesn't always happen, but it happens quite often. If you purchase a property in a lower than a Class C neighborhood, like if you purchase a property in a Class D or a Class F neighborhood, the chances of you having a problematic tenant goes up significantly. Or two, you might have some knucklehead that might be out here walking the streets that might do something to the house, and then you have to go and make the repairs. You might have to go and take out a claim on your insurance, and then when you go to renew your homeowner's insurance on that property, your policy increases as a result. You might have some junk knucklehead that might run their vehicle into the back of your property and completely destroy it. I've seen that happen before. Another thing is, if it's in a lower than Class C area, even if you find a tenant to rent that property out from you, not only will the chances of you getting a problematic tenant increase, but also you're going to most likely have turnover. You're going to have people moving out more frequently because of the person was problematic, so maybe you had to evict them. B, maybe they decided to move because they wanted to live somewhere in a better neighborhood. So for whatever reason, the chances of turnover in a Class D or an F neighborhood is going to be greater, which means you're going to have to go in there and do more painting. You're going to have to go in there and do more repairs to get the property ready for that next tenant. So chances are in a Class D or a Class F neighborhood, you're going to have to do more repair and maintenance to the property over time because you're going to have more turnover. So that's another way that your rental property could potentially become a liability as opposed to it being an asset. And in some cases, your homeowner's insurance for that property might be higher because of the reputation of the neighborhood. Especially if you take out a claim at any time. And then, of course, if something were to happen and you were to go to sell that property, if that property is in a D or an F class neighborhood, guess what? The probability of you losing your money is going to also increase because you're not going to have as many people that are going to be wanting to buy that property. And whatever investor may choose to buy that property, they're going to lowball the fuck out of you. Because that's just the nature of the game. When you have a lower grade property, they're gonna lowball the hell out of you. And if you want to sell that property, you might get to the point where you might have to take that lowball offer, or two, you'll just be holding on to a property that you cannot rent because there's not going to be no cash flow. So those are some of the issues you run into when so those are some of the ways that you can end up with a rental property that ends up being a liability as opposed to it being an asset. So in a nutshell, I would say when it comes to a piece of real estate being a liability or an asset, it depends on a lot of factors. I mean, it depends on how you go about buying the property. Are you utilizing any kind of a loan? Are you paying cash? And then you also got to factor in the neighborhood. And also, you got to make sure that financially, you're not purchasing too much house. So I wouldn't be quick to say that. So I wouldn't be quick to say that your primary residence is a liability, and and the rental is an asset. I would not be quick to say that at all, because depending on how you go about purchasing real estate, your primary residence could prove to be more of an asset than your rental, or vice versa. It all depends on how you go about buying your piece of real estate. It all depends. Because there's been a lot of rental properties that I've looked at, well, ex-rental properties that I looked at purchasing for myself for one reason or another. And I can tell that the tenant that was in that property trashed the hell out of it. And I would assume in those cases, the landlord most likely is losing a considerable amount of money on getting rid of that property. Or they're getting rid of that property because they know if they don't, they're going to lose money. I mean, and let's not forget about 2020. Let's not forget about 2020. We all know about 2020. You know, you had a lot of people that were taking advantage of 2020, and they were staying in these properties for free, not paying a dime of rent. The landlords had to eat that shit up, and many of them, unfortunately, had their asses handed to them on a silver platter financially. Many of these landlords had to go into bankruptcy. I mean, it was ridiculous. So let's not forget about 2020. And to be honest with you people, as I continue to make repairs and light renovations to my house up in Indiana, getting it ready for my tenant, or for a tenant, I mean, there's a couple of people that I spoke to already that I somewhat know. But even with all that being said, there's a part of me that's very hesitant. That's somewhat hesitant. And as far as me making my money off that house, I hope I make my money off that house. I hope these people are good people. Now, obviously, I'm gonna run, I'm gonna run their background and all that good stuff. But I'm just saying, because the more money that I put in on that house up in Indiana, the longer I'm gonna have to rent it out before I break even on my investment. And these are things that people need to think about when it comes to real estate. And another thing is, for those of you that are getting ready to let your job go, maybe you may have saved up a little bit of money, or maybe you may have took out a loan, and now you're getting ready to quit your job and buy some real estate, and you think you're going to live off the proceeds of what you make as a landlord. I'm here to tell you, no, you're not. I'm here to tell you to keep your job. I'm here to tell you, before you take out that loan, think twice before you take out that loan. Like I told you at the beginning of the video. The only way I would go about real estate investing is to purchase that real estate and pay cash. Because the thing about real estate is not a quick get rich type of endeavor. Now, could real estate be a good tool to put in your portfolio? Yes, it can, if done the right way. However, even if done the right way, real estate is one of those type of investments that you have to be ready and willing and able to play the long game. If you're not ready and willing and able to play the long game when it comes to real estate, don't even mess with real estate. Just leave real estate alone. Like if you need to make some money real quick and fast, you need to make money right away because, you know, you're broke or whatever the case might be. The worst thing you can do is buy real estate. What you need to do instead is you might want to go ahead and pick up that you might want to go ahead and get you a second job. You might want to go ahead and do that and work that gig app. You might want to go ahead and work some overtime if available at your job. You're definitely not going to want to quit your job until you get something else. Another way you can go about making some money real quick and fast is you would actually be better off maybe starting yourself like a little side business, a side hustle. Any of that would be better than buying real estate if you need to make money right away because you're broke or whatever the case might be. Real estate is one of those type of tools. Real estate is one of those type of investments to where, like I said, you gotta be willing to play the long game. You can't buy a piece of real estate and think, okay, I got this piece of real estate, I'm good. I ain't got nothing to worry about. No. That's not true. That's false. Most people that go into real estate do not make or not able to make a living primarily off of real estate. Most people that go into real estate generally are working some kind of a 9-to-5 or they're running some kind of business. They're not just doing real estate exclusively. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I just gotta keep it real with you folks, especially you younger folks. Because I don't want you younger folks in your 20s and 30s going out here and buying up a whole bunch of real estate and then you go bankrupt and then you ruin your financial future for the next 10 years or so. You ruin your life, you ruin your family's life, all because you thought real estate was going to be the quick come up. So in closing, real estate, when you invest in real estate, you got to be willing to play the long game. You do not use real estate as a quick come up. If you try to, you will fail. I'm just saying, you will fail. And there's probably more that I can say about this topic, but we're already 33 minutes into it, so stay blessed.